Good morning, brothers and sisters. Father Edwin here from out in front of school, at least to make it look that way. I thought I'd have the 520 entrance for you to remember what it was like when you were going up the steps to greet Father Dunstan or Father Boniface or whomever it was that was greeting you when you were a student. I just thought I'd take the time to try to bring you up to date on our efforts with the request of the girls from Benedictine Academy. You may remember that in March it was announced that Benedictine Academy was going to close at the end of this academic year, and has done that. They've already graduated, and the school is closed. When that announcement was made, a group of the leaders from Benedictine Academy came here to meet with our student leaders, and they had a conversation that they were polite enough to invite me into towards the end of the meeting, at which point they kind of announced to me that we needed to do something here to try to help the girls who wanted to continue their education, their high school education, in a Benedictine tradition. And it was amazing to me how well schooled they were in the rule of Benedict and the Benedictine traditions, and of prayer, of work, of hospitality. I was impressed with them. So that began a process of, number one, me trying to throw up some roadblocks that they climbed over or ran through. So I decided at one point to have a meeting. We met in our cafeteria with the girls who were interested, or who thought they were interested at the time, and with their parents. And it was obvious to me that they had this desire for us to do something. In fact, they were, in some cases, pretty vocal about it. Virtually everybody that was there in the cafeteria, parents and students, are Black and brown folks from here in Newark, from Elizabeth, from Irvington, from East Orange, and the immediate environments of Newark. So I went to the Board of Trustees and had several meetings with them about it, and then took it to the monastic community, and we had several meetings about it as well. Both the Board of Trustees and the monastic community voted in favor of trying to do something to be of assistance to the girls. The directive was that we would do this on an experimental basis for 3 years, evaluating it at least once every year, and to see if we could make it work, and to see if the girls, in fact, could make it work. It's not the adults that have to make it work. The adults have to cooperate with the kids, and as we have done, thanks to our Father Mark Payne, who taught us all of that, as we have done over the last 48 years. Don't do for kids what kids can do for themselves. So the kids are going to have to make this work. We will evaluate it at least once every year, and the number of students was to be between 60 and 70. We presently have 70 students enrolled and interested in getting going. I emphasize that this is not going to make St. Benedict's Prep coeducational. It is not. The girls will have a separate faculty, a separate leadership structure with their own senior group leader, their own section leader, their own group leaders. The faculty has already been hired. 4 of the faculty members are former faculty members of Benedictine Academy. 2 of the faculty members are Franciscan friars, or friars minor, and they were both administrators, in fact, at Cristo Rey. Why do I mention Cristo Rey? Because number one, they were teachers there and administrators there, but Cristo Rey was also a school that was closed by the Archdiocese of Newark. In the closing of Cristo Rey and Benedictine Academy, we lost 230 seats for girls. Cristo Rey was co-ed. There were about 100 girls there and another 100 and 120 boys. So we lost 230 seats simply for girls in the closing of those 2 schools. We have 70 girls here registered and can't take any more because of space and because of the directive of the Board of Trustees. There's 160 other girls out there that I assume are finding other schools. I hope they're able to find Catholic schools. But I say that because we are no threat by taking 70 girls, any girls' school with the closings that are going on. That's a lot of seats to lose for people who were in Catholic schools and now have to scramble. So I want to emphasize that. We have 70 girls of the 230 that were in Catholic schools between Benedictine Academy and Cristo Rey. The good news is some people might be concerned about the finances. Well, the tuition that gets paid by the girls will help to fund it. Will it fund the whole thing? No. But frequently what happens, if you remember the story in the book of Exodus, when Moses finally got the Hebrews out of Egypt, when they left, Pharaoh decided it was a bad idea to have let them go. So he began to chase after them to try to recapture them. And they had Pharaoh breathing down their neck, and the Red Sea appeared in front of them, and they stopped. And they began to complain to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here? Why did you do this?" And Moses looked at God and said, "Why did you do this to me? Why did I got this far, and now we're stuck." And God said to Moses, "Tell the people to go forward." Brothers and sisters, that's all we're trying to do, is to go forward. And when we decided to go forward with this effort, not knowing exactly how the finances would work out, but trusting that the Lord didn't bring us this far to leave us, we have a commitment of $500,000 from a Benedictine Academy alum to give $250,000 to the girls' operation and $250,000 to the boys. The alum happens to be the widow of one of our guys, which was a kind of a pattern back in the day, as the kids would say, of Benedict's guys marrying Benedictine Academy girls, or Benedict's guys marrying St. Vincent girls. So the finances are fine, thanks to the generosity not only of this woman but of other Benedictine Academy alums who have stepped forward and are helping, as well as some Benedict's guys who have given money specifically for the girls. I've also gotten several phone calls from our guys who said, "Father Ed, thanks a lot. Now my daughter can experience the same thing I experienced." And one of the guys said, "And she's a lot better than I was, Father Ed." So that addresses the question of the faculty, addresses the question of the finances. And we start school on July 6th. We will begin school remotely. Why are we going to do it remotely? Because I'm being cautious with the governor's directives, but a significant weight of this pandemic has been visited upon the African American and the Latino community. Black and brown people have suffered greatly from this virus, partly because of diet issues, partly because of housing issues, partly because of economic issues, all coming in together, that it's visited a heavy cross on the shoulders of Black and brown folks. So we're going to be cautious in July and go to school virtually in July, but we will bring in students both on the girls' side as well as the guys' side on alternate days to do a orientation, or what we're calling a freshman summer. Even though the girls that are doing it are not all freshmen, we're doing it with the entire girls division, so they learn the history of Benedict's. So the boys' side will come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the girls' side on Mondays and Wednesdays in small groups of 8. So I'll at another time I'll give you more about that. One last piece of information that might be helpful to you. Remember the opening of St. Benedict's Prep. St. Benedict's Prep was not reopened by the monks of Newark Abbey, nor was it reopened by me. It was reopened by Carl Lamb. Mr. Lamb's son was a member of the class of 1978. In a parents' meeting one night in 1974, Mr. Lamb said to me, you may remember that it was not called St. Benedict's Prep. Because, brothers and sisters, racism runs deep in this country and in all of us. The biggest problem with these protests frequently is that people who are white have a hard time admitting their racism. Why is it that we didn't want to call it St. Benedict's Prep in 1973 when we reopened? Race. Race. Did we not think that they were worthy of being at St. Benedict's Prep? Carl Lamb said to me one night at a parents' meeting, Father Ed, I want to ask you a question. Why was it good enough to be St. Benedict's Prep when it was all of you? And now that it's all of us, it can't be St. Benedict's Prep anymore. I had no answers, brothers and sisters. I looked at him and I said, Mr. Lamb, St. Benedict's Prep will open tomorrow, and you reopened it. I learned from that an admonition that Bill Wilson, who had the vision for Alcoholics Anonymous, used to say, I think it's attributed to him, it's certainly attributed to Alcoholics Anonymous, that we should take the cotton out of our ears and stick it in our mouth, which is a kind of a slightly more polite way, not completely polite, but slightly more polite way of saying shut up and listen. And what I learned from Mr. Lamb, and what we've all learned here, is that if we were able to listen, folks would teach us how we could be best of most service to them, how we could have the privilege of accompany them through life. And so far it's worked. So when I have the request from African-American and Latino parents to do something to help their girls continue in a Benedictine tradition, this white man is not going to tell those Black and brown people, we can't do that, or we won't do that. I have an obligation as a Christian and an obligation as a monk. A chapter in the rule of Benedict is on hospitality. I have an obligation to respond in hospitality. An obligation that goes all the way back to Abraham sitting outside his tent in the cool of the day when 3 strangers came by and he begged them not to pass him. And in that encounter, he met God. So just some, you didn't ask for all that, but just some random reflections from a random guy. I hope this helps in understanding more about this effort of the Abbey to be able to respond to the request of the parents and the girls from Benedictine. And remember, we've already gotten a significant surprise from an alum of the $250,000 for each part of the operation. The last thing I would say is I've also walked around with one of our board members in our neighborhood here, looking at possibilities for expansion of our work and of our mission. And there's more to come on that later. So the long-term plan would not be to have to be where we are in 3 years where we are when we start. This whole operation isn't where it started in 1973, brothers and sisters, and it didn't happen because of us. We did the work. God provided the opportunity and made the way. So I trust the same thing will happen with the girls' effort, if it's the will of the Lord. So have a good day. Glad to be with you. Keep your courage up, and I'll talk to you soon.